Aleph Bet Gimel? Are we on? Aleph Bet Gimel? Aleph Bet Gimel. Good evening. We are beginning. It's always a pleasure to welcome Yehuda to the Bima. We'll begin in just a moment. And we have the Siddur and also some song sheets. We'll begin right now with the Siddur, and we're turning to the Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem is found on page number 5 in the Siddur. It's a prayer, it's a song, it's become our greeting, and on a subtle level, which we should embrace. Think about what it means that we've transformed a prayer, a song, into what we might call an ordinary greeting. That elevates an ordinary greeting to the stature of nearly prayer, nearly song. So when you and I encounter a fellow Jew and we greet that person accordingly, that's an exchange of prayer. Not every element of prayer is Baruch Atah or Shema or Amen. Shalom Aleichem on page number 5. Turning to page 11, Lechun Ranana, which is a psalm from the Tanakh, from the Bible. And the psalm literally means, come on, folks, now it's time to sing together. Lechun Ranana, and this is a melody which Yehuda composed.
Toda
And on page 12, concluding this psalm on the English side, before Yehuda leads us in the next piece. If only you would listen today to God's voice and not become hard-hearted like the people at Merivah, like that time at Massah in the desert, when your ancestors tried me and tested me, though they had seen what I had wrought. For 40 years I was troubled by that generation, and I said, these are people whose hearts have gone astray. They do not know my way. So in anger I swore they would not enter my rest. And if you look at page 13 on the top of the page, whether the Hebrew or the English, you see the opening phrase, Shiru Adonai Shir Chadash, which means sing to Adonai a new song. And Yehuda has compiled his own contemporary version of this, which is on the song sheet, Shiru Adonai Shir Chadash. It's 2 stanzas. And this is the embodiment of the Tehillim, which, remember, originate in the land of Israel 3,000 years ago. It's sung religious poetry. Sung religious poetry. And Yehuda has taken that and brought his own poetic style, both in English and also in the melody to it. Shiru.
Sing to God a new song. Sing to God all the land. Sing to God and praise His name and tell of His saving hand. Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Adonai, Koharet, Shiru Adonai, Baruch Shmo, Bazru Miyom, Yom Yeshua Tzon. Sing to God a new song. Sing to God all the land. Sing to God and praise His name and tell of His saving hand. Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru Adonai, Koharet.
And if you look at the last stanza of the English that Yehuda composed, obviously we all know the words, sing to God. And then look at page 14 on the CD on the English side. It's the second stanza. The heavens shall be glad and the earth rejoice, the sea and its fullness roar, the meadows and all that grows in them exult. Even the trees of the forest shall sing praise as Adonai comes to judge the earth, judging lands with righteousness and peoples with divine truth. And this emerges from the tone that Yehuda sets in his translation, in his compilation, his own poetic wording, that in effect the world is learning to sing because you and I are singing. and the elements of nature are responding to our song. Our song is so powerful as to awaken nature itself. And furthermore, when you go back to page 14 in the Siddur, even the trees of the forest shall sing praise, etc., comes to judge the earth, judging lands with righteousness. The world itself is affected by our song, and the world sees the need of morality and justice and righteousness. Your song has effect on the world itself. That's what this psalm is teaching tonight. Say, wow. Wow. Main song sheet, Hebrew and English on one. We're beginning Ma Tovu. How beautiful it is that we're here together. Ma Tovu. And further down, just the next stanza is Romamu Adonai Eloheinu. This is a phrase from the book of Psalms. Romamu, which literally means lift up, exalt, sing. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu, sing about God. V'hishtachavu, and worship. Lahar Kadsho, at God's own holy mountain. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, because God, our God, is holy. Romamu.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Beshtachau Lehar Kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Beshtachau Lehar Kodsho. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Adonai Eloheinu Romemu, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Beshtachau Lehar Kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Beshtachau Lehar Kodsho. Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Adonai Eloheinu Romemu, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Beshtachau Lehar Kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Beshtachau Lehar Kodsho.
L'Chadodi is on page 23. First two, last two, or? first two stanzas on page number 23, the last two stanzas of the Lachadodi on page 25. And remember that when we approach the end of the Lachadodi on page 25, we rise and we turn, we face the door, symbolically welcoming Shabbat. Page 23 and 25, the opening two and closing two stanzas of Lachadodi.
You caught me slipping, Rabbi.
Lechan dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Lechan dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Shamor v'zakor v'dibur echad, ishmiyanu elam yuchad, Hanai echad u'shmo echad, l'shimo tiferet valitila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki mekor haveracha, rosh mikedem nesucha, sopase Shabbat hakila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Yaminu smol tiprotzi, yet Adonai taritzi, al yarish ben kodzi, b'nisir hav'nagila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Ro'i v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch nebunei am zegla, ro'i kala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat lekavela.
Remaining standing. On page 27, we have the psalm that for thousands of years has been identified as the Psalm of Shabbat. It's named the Psalm for Shabbat, and traditionally it's recited both Friday night and Saturday morning. It's like a punctuation mark, an exclamation point, you might say. And there are many elements, but tonight I wish to look at something on page 27. To the best of our knowledge, this has been recited for at least 2,000 years, potentially much longer, every Friday night and every Saturday morning in group worship and also individual worship, all over the world. It's the way we remind ourselves that it's Shabbos. Remember, Lachadodi is new. It's only 500 years old. So, but the Psalm for Shabbat, that's our landmark. That's our exclamation point about what Shabbat is. So the day of the week is associated with these themes, or these themes are associated with this day of the week. Third stanza down on page 28. As my enemies gather against me, my gaze remains steady, for my ears listen and hear. The psalm is trying to teach us something. The psalm is asserting for us to be confident, even if and when there are enemies about. And of what shall we be confident based upon the psalm's perspective? The next stanza. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards. We are supposed to see ourselves as being confident that we have eternal spiritual value and significance to such an extent that we are necessary for God's own courtyard. That each one of us fruitifies and beautifies God's yard. You just read it. We've been saying this for thousands of years. Jewish people all over the world say the same thing. And the last stanza, the psalm is speaking about how confident we are that we have something to contribute to the world itself. Each one of us. In old age, the righteous, that's us, remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming Adonai is upright, my rock in whom there is no flaw. We have significant value, and we also testify by our identity to something much greater than ourselves. So we transform the environment in which we dwell, and we're also witnesses to an enduring existential spiritual truth. That's who we are. That's how we tell time. And once we've told time, we're ready for the Baruch Hu. 39a. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamavorach. Baruch Hamavorach Le'olam V'ed. And we are seated. The first bracha on the English side. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space, whose word brings the evening dusk, whose wisdom opens the gates of dawn, whose understanding changes the day's division, whose will sets the succession of seasons and arranges the stars in their places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light, who makes day pass into night, who distinguishes day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Living and ever-present God, may your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. El Chai V'Kayam, Tamidim Lo Chaleinu L'Olam V'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai, HaMa'ariv Aravim. And typically we turn to page 40, which is the second bracha of the evening service, speaking about Ahavat Olam. God's love for us is eternal. But it's Guitar Shabbat, and so we turn to the song sheet, the one that we just had a moment ago, with the Hebrew and the English, and it's immediately below the center asterisks of the page. It's Ahavat Olam, Yehuda.
Ahavat Olam, Be'hi Yisrael, Lama Ahavta. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you. The song of the trees, the wind winds their leaves. The song of the earth, the wind rains soothes its thirst. The song of the sea, when waves are set free. The song of the sky, when hummingbirds fly. Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Be'hi Yisrael, Lama Ahavta. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you. The song of the trees, when winds their leaves. The song of the earth, when rain soothes its thirst. The song of the sea, when waves are set free. The song of the sky, when hummingbirds fly. Ahavat Olam, Ahavat Olam, Be'hi Yisrael, Lama Ahavta. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you. All the world sings to you, the world sings to you.
Yehuda Shema in a moment. V'avatachal tasir mimenu olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Shema, page 41.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'kol levacha, v'kol nafshecha, u'v'kol meodecha, ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anohi mitzavecha yom alevavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibartam bam, v'shivtecha b'vitecha, u'v'lechtecha b'derech, u'shakbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'yot al yadecha, ve'hayu le'tosafot beinenecha, u'ktabtam al mezuzot betecha, u'v'hisharecha.
Moments for silence. Some of the commentary on page 41. Adonai Elohechem emet. Michamocha is on page 44, and again, another piece that Yehuda composed, the Michamocha on page 44.
Michamocha b'lim Adonai, Michamocha ner b'kodesh, Ora tehilot of seifele, Ora tehilot of seifele, Malchutecha ra'u anecha, Bokeyam lifnei Moshe, Ze'eliyanu ve'amru, Adonai yimlach le'lam vayet, guided
V'ne'emar ki Adonai et Yaakov ugalo mi'ar chazak mimenu baruch ata Adonai ka'al Yisrael. Turning to page 45 in the Siddur, you see before us the second bracha after the Shema. It's the Hashkivenu, and you've heard me say many times about the significance of Hashkivenu. We have to remind ourselves, if we look at Hashkivenu from a grammatical context, Hashkivenu is a command. Now, who are we to command God about doing anything? And I would say that we justify having the chutzpah to command God to do something by seeking a sense of peace for everyone. And typically we recite this together in English, but it's Guitar Shabbat, and we have on the song sheet a Hashkivenu, and Yehuda has a presentation of the Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu leChayim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu leChayim Rose Aleinu Sukkah Shlomecha L'chaim u'shalom Me'atza ve'ad olam. Sometimes I lay under the moon and I thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. For when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. And all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There be no more wars, our children will pay. One day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day. It's not about win or lose, so we all lose when they feed on the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving, though the water stayed raging. In this maze you can lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it faze you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. But when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around. And all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There be no more wars, our children will pay. One day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu leChayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Malkeinu leChayim.
Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Vishamru is on the top of page number 46.
Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. הנה בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Yamim Asadonai Asadonai Et Ashmayim Et Haaretz Veshamru B'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat Lasod Et HaShabbat Ledorotam Berit Olam Uvayom Hashvi Shabbat B'nafash Shabbat B'nafash Shabbat B'nafash Veshamru B'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat Lasod Et HaShabbat Ledorotam Berit Olam
Kadash Shemei Rabban, B'amadi v'chudei b'chayechon v'yom echon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Bagala Ovesman Kariv V'imero Amen Yehei Shemei Rabba Mevarach La'olam Yalme Almaya Yit Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitpar v'yinaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'rechu leila min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yalma v'yimeru amen. Before we rise, turn for a moment to page 49, which is the kishkas of the Amida. It's the kishkas of the Amida. It's the main part. You know what a kishka is? It's the kishkas. Exactly. It's the deepness. You see fourth bracha. It's Kedushat Hayom is the technical name, the holiness of Shabbat itself. Look at the bottom paragraph. Our God and God of our ancestors, embrace our rest. Make us holy through your mitzvot. Fill our lives with your goodness. Next line down. Purify our hearts to serve you truly. Purify our hearts. So the essence of God and God of our ancestors embracing our rest has something to do with our purifying our hearts. In a moment we're going to rise. And the traditional text is before us in the Siddur, or you might consider, ask yourself, what does it mean to purify my heart in order to gain a sense of rest? And I'll be asking you a question about that in a few moments. We rise, the traditional text before us, page 47 to 52, or a moment of our own personal silent meditation. On page 51, you see the seventh bracha, and the title is Prayer for Peace, it's Birkat Shalom, and we all know the significance of the number 7, and Shabbos is the seventh day of the week, and so we could say that every one of the blessings in the Shabbat Amidah, there's 7 blessings, is associated with the day of the week, and then it's easy to say that the blessing seeking peace is associated with the day of Shabbat itself. And Yehuda now leads us in Shalom Rav, found in the Hebrew or the transliteration.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Ama Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Ama Tasim Le'olam. Ki atah melech hador lechol hashalom. Ki atah melech hador lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Ama Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Ama Tasim Le'olam. V'tov enecha levarech et tzamcha Yisrael v'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael Ama Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Ama Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam.
A couple months ago, early January, I was contacted by an instructor on the South Campus. She's an instructor of literature, and she asked me to come into the class and share some thoughts. She uses the Norton Anthology, which I remember from high school days. Some of us might remember from high school or college. It's a compendium of excerpts of many different literatures from across the face of the earth. And she was highlighting some passages from, she called it the Old Testament, and she wanted some input. So I prepared some notes, sent her a sheet to hand out to the students, and I walked in carrying my Tanakh and an actual Megillah scroll. And when we got to that point in my talk, I said, do this, and then I handed out the Megillah so they could see parchment and hold in their hands, because literature is often influenced by and contingent upon the form in which it's written, right? And so we talked and had discussion, some questions, and okay, fine, and I left. And about 2 weeks ago, she emailed me and asked would I come back in. And so I thought, okay, it's a follow-up. Maybe there's some questions that have come up. Maybe there's a response. Maybe she wants to add on to it or in some way. And so I went, and she said, by the way, we'll also be talking about Dante. And I said, okay, fine. So just to make sure I was grounded, I read a quick article about Dante and the Inferno. So I went in the day before yesterday, and she made a couple announcements, and she said, okay, and now Rabbi Silberman. I didn't realize that she wanted me to teach a class about Dante's Inferno. I hope. But anyway, so for those of us who haven't really studied Dante's Inferno, or it's been a while, the cliff notes are that this is written by a man in the 1320s of a Catholic background about Catholic doctrine for Catholics. And I'm anything but Catholic, and certainly not a Catholic theologian. And you may have heard about the 7 levels or layers of hell, and you may have heard the term purgatory. All that is conveyed in a mere 13, I think it's 1,000 lines of lyric poetry, usually presented in 300 or 400 or 500 pages. That's Dante's, it's called the Divine Comedy, and there's nothing comedic about it. Anyway, so I introduced myself, I made a sentence, and then I said, let's talk. And I asked questions. because I can always ask questions about anything. And I engage the students, and we had a discussion. And I know enough about the themes of sin and being on a journey from hell to purgatory to heaven. And so I asked them, what are you looking for when you have a partner and you're on a terrifying journey? Do you wish a partner when you're on a terrifying journey? And I engaged them in discussion. We got things going after a while, and then I threw in some elements about sin, and people talked about love, and then I brought it back to Dante because this is the class, it's supposed to be about Dante, so I had to keep bringing it back to Dante, and then somebody said something about else, and then what about sin, and then purity, and so on. Initially, I thought that she wanted me to offer elements about how the Hebrew doctrine of sin is very different than the traditional Christian church doctrine, but I gathered from my on-the-fly lecture that that's not what she wanted, and so I did not highlight the differences between Jewish views of sin and Christian views of sin. And as I left the room, it occurred to me, some of our Jewish people may be slightly more familiar with Dante, or at least the theme of the 7 layers of hell, than Jewish theology. So it's always appropriate to talk just a little bit about Jewish views of sin. And we know the Hebrew word for sin because every Yom Kippur we talk about it in detail. We stand up, we sit down, we heft the machzor, we do this over and over again. And we know the Hebrew word for sin is chet, which means... Not quite. What's chet mean? Chet. Missing the target. It's actually an old archery term, but it's used in modern Hebrew as well. So if you're a sports commentator and you're commentating on, let's say, a basketball game, halavai, and somebody misses the target, you can use choteh or chet, missing the ball, missing the goal. And we all know that if somebody shoots a ball in a basketball and he misses the target, what's the very first thing he or she's supposed to do? Rebound and try again. And whether it's soccer or basketball, or the analogy works for football, we're supposed to try again. And that's the Hebrew term of teshuvah, which means returning to our best desired path. So teshuvah, which means returning to our best desired path, teaches that we automatically have a default setting that we presume to be positive. Our default operational system within Jewish life is that each one of us is going to do the very best that she or he can. In contrast to traditional Christianity, which says that you and I are born and we've inherited sin from somebody else. You know the term original sin. Judaism teaches that when I do something and I'm missing the target, I have the capacity to improve my own life by trying again. And the tradition of Yom Kippur and the Holiday of Machzor, the prayer book, is to encourage me to do the very best I can. And I don't rely on you or you or you to improve my life. I'm not seeking outside agency to remove my error or my missed target. I rely on myself, which is different than the agency necessary within traditional Christian doctrine. But I couldn't say all that because that wasn't the purpose of my being in the classroom the day before yesterday. But this is on my mind not only because did you see the last 2 or 3 minutes of Bama's game last night? And you should see some of those shots that are being made. And Bama is now in the Elite 8. And we're excited because it's an SEC team, and it's from the state of Alabama. And that's one reason why I'm bringing this up today. Also because of this lecture that we just did the day before yesterday. And thirdly, because of the Haftorah that we read tomorrow. We're approaching the holiday of Passover. And there's a very specific Haftorah that we read tomorrow. It comes from the book of Yechezkel, which is Ezekiel. And Ezekiel is talking to a Jewish community that lost its home. It was kicked out of its land. And most of its people were killed in a war. The war happened 2,600 years ago by a Babylonian king named Nebuchadnezzar and destroyed all of Jerusalem and killed 70-80% of the Jewish population and took the rest as slaves to Babylonia, which we now call Iran and Iraq. And Jewish people had lost everything, and now they were less than second-class citizens or third-class citizens, conquered slaves. They had no free will. They had no autonomy. They had no sense of self, no identity, no home. They were subjugated and they were vilified. And Ezekiel talks to them and he says, someday you're going to go back home again. And everybody wants to live at home. When you're living at home, you have your own place, you have your own space, you can have your own sense of identity. You have your own sense of governing your own actions and of maintaining agency for yourself. And that's what Ezekiel says as I'm interpreting it in light of my little lecture at South the day before yesterday and tomorrow's Haftorah, just a couple of lines. I will take you from among the nations and gather you from among all the countries, and I, God, will bring you back to your own land, and you shall live in your home. I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be pure. Each and every one of you individually will be made pure, and I will remove the heart of stone from your body and give you a heart of flesh. Ezekiel saying, I will remove the heart of stone from you and give you a heart of flesh, and I will purify you. And just a few moments ago in our Amidah, if you were looking at that traditional text, or maybe you were thinking of your own thoughts, I asked you, what does it mean to seek a pure heart? Did you notice that? And Ezekiel's talking about that in tomorrow's Haftorah within the context, Labriot, of bringing people home, stabilizing them, and reminding them that each one has the agency to build a life anew. So I want you to challenge yourself. And if anybody feels comfortable sharing a thought, what does it mean to have a pure heart? Does anybody have a thought to share tonight? What does it mean to purify one's heart?
I would say maybe understanding control, what you do and you don't have control of in life. Taking that to heart, and that would bring at least inner peace.
Knowing what you can and can't do in life and having a sense of control, or recognizing the lack of control, and that brings a sense of peace. Thank you. Other ideas? It's what you have after you atone. After you seek whatever that means to atone, you have a purified heart. Thank you. Other ideas?
Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, we come pretty close to it. We know what our sins are, and we try to purify ourselves by not sinning anymore.
So taking a heart of stone out and putting a heart of flesh. That's from tomorrow's Haftorah. And that's, you might say, the method of having a purified heart. So what does that mean to us today? Removing a heart of stone and having in its place a heart of flesh.
Reevaluate yourself.
Reevaluating yourself. If you have a heart of stone, you're unable to love. So maybe one of the elements of purification is having the capacity to love.
In my experience, one of the most difficult things it causes me personally shame, and that's something that I just don't deal with well at all. Causes me guilt and shame is having to admit, they're not shortcomings, we can admit our shortcomings, but when I just have out and out messed up really bad. And more than one teacher of more than one method of spirituality, they all describe it the same way, that cleansing the heart, cleansing the soul is like taking steel wool to the heart. When you admit your faults, when you make amends for your faults, when you better yourself because of the process that you've gone through. And then on the other side of it, I'm at one with my fellow, I'm at one with my God, I'm at one with me. But the process of going through that, oh my Lord.
If we take it seriously, it's very hard. It's challenging. Other thoughts?
I was thinking that empathy and compassion towards others and also to yourself.
So removing or replacing a heart of stone with a heart of flesh is expressed by the operations having empathy for others and for oneself. Compassion. So purification of heart means empathy and compassion. Thank you.
Should we start with our own family?
Well, we can start with anyone. I mean, empathy and compassion are not limited to just people close to us in our own individual lives. That hopefully applies to different walks of life that we experience.
Okay.
Any last comments? Then I want to conclude last. So, every traditional synagogue on the face of this earth, this Shabbat, is reading this Haftorah. Some might, it's a very long Haftorah, so some might abbreviate it, some might read the entire, some might read it in Hebrew, some might read it in the local language of its own country. But it says something that for 2,100 to 2,200 years, on this Shabbat, 2.5 weeks before Pesach, we're reading this Haftorah, talking about the process and the need for each one of us individually to reevaluate the self. And the context of that reevaluation is that a prophet who's been displaced and seen his own family, his own nation, his own community in suffering is saying that when you do this, it's as if God is replacing something that is stultified within you and giving you a new life. That's a Jewish understanding of purity. And I want us as Jews to know how we differ from other communities within the world. May we grow in our own understanding of who we are. And may we do all that you've just shared with us tonight and taught us about purifying our hearts. And now we rise for the Leinu. Leinu's on page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot adama, Shelo sam chelkeinu kahem v'goraleinu kechol hamonam v'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu noteh shamayim v'yoser haaretz umoshav yekaro b'shamayim mimal u'shechinatu zo begavei meromim hu Eloheinu ein od emet malkeinu efes zulato kakatu b'torato v'yadata yom v'ashevota el levavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mimal v'al haaretz mitachat ein od. Kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihye Adonai echad U'shema echad. Please remain standing now on page number 58, the Mourner's Kaddish. And here within our own shul, our own community, we remember with great love Esther Loeb, Eli Schneiderman, Herbert Moore, Rose B. Powell, Max Wilson, Rebecca Perloff, Pearl Brook. Are there any other names to mention this evening? We have an empty chair. We've had an empty chair since the week after October 7th. And our hearts are broken and torn and wounded. And we join with other Jewish communities around the world. We join with Medinat Yisrael, our people in Israel. And remember all those whose lives were stolen from all of us. And perhaps somebody at home joining in online has the name to share as well, and is invited to mention the name aloud. Kaddish is on page 58. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba. Amen. Be'olma divara chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chaye echon uv'yom echon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'zaman kariv v'imaru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivarach la'olam ololmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shmei dekudasha, brichu, la'ela min kol, birchata, v'shirata, tush bechata, v'nechamata, da'amiran ba'alma, v'imaru, amen. Yehei shalama, rabba, min shemaya, v'chayim, aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imaru, amen. Oseh shalom bimramav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imaru, amen. And may our hearts be open. Maybe that's one of the next steps to bringing shalom, with hearts that are open. We are seated We'll conclude in a moment, and Yehuda has a song which is on the other song sheet. And after this song, we'll turn off the stream, and then we'll make Kiddush and a Motzi. And we have an oneg here, a chance for us to visit and schmooze and say hi and catch up. We have some new faces, faces that some of you haven't seen in quite some time. So let's visit a little bit in the social hall over the oneg and get reacquainted a little bit and hug and say hi. And as you look at this song, he has shown the old man. Look at the last line. What does God want? To do justice, or to justly, to love mercy, asterisk. One of the nicknames or the translations of Ahavas Chesed is to love kindness or to love mercy. It comes from a book of the prophets. The name is Micah in English, found in the Tanakh. And obviously, this is the point of origin for the name of our shul 130 years ago. He has shown thee.
He has shown me, oh man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee. He has shown me, oh man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God. He has shown me, oh man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee. He has shown me, oh man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God.
Yishar Koach Yehuda, you always transport us. Yishar Koach. So, good Shabbos, folks. We can't wait to see you in person. Come on back. Until that point, please know that you are loved. May God bless you. May